Hello again, guys. All right, our third and final St. Patrick's Day story to share together is called The Leprechaun's Gold. It's by Pamela Duncan Edwards and it's illustrated by Henry Cole. And I wonder, since we've already read one story about a leprechaun, I wonder if there will be some of the same things that we learn about leprechauns, or if we're going to learn some different things about leprechauns from this story. Another thing that I would like for us to all think about is, will this story have anything in common with some of the things that we learned about from Jamie O'Rourke and the Puka? So let's think about how we can compare and contrast these stories, even though they are all about something to do with Ireland, something to do maybe with even St. Patrick's Day. But let's make sure that we are thinking about those things as we start this story. And it goes like this. Long ago, before even your great-great-grandfather was born, there lived in a small village in Ireland a man known to all as Old Pat. Old Pat was a harpist, and a good one at that. Many a wedding was made the merrier by Old Pat's harp. And here's Old Pat, and this instrument, this musical instrument, is called a harp. It's a stringed instrument like a guitar or a banjo or a violin, and maybe you've heard harp music before or even seen someone playing a harp before. If you have not, maybe that's something that you can look up after the story. Old Pat was a harpist and a good one. Many a wedding was made the merrier by Old Pat's music. In the same village dwelled young Tom. Tom had learned his own harp playing from Pat's teaching, but now Tom thought himself a better harpist than old Pat. He was much given to boasting and bragging and charging the villagers great amounts of silver for his skills. But old Pat was humble and willing to play his music for free for those he knew had not the means to pay. So if young Pat is boasting and bragging, then someone who is humble must be the opposite of someone who would boast and brag. "Foolish old man," scoffed young Tom. "What use is a gift if not to make you rich?" Old Pat replied, "I am rich in friends, and that is enough." Are there different ways we can be rich? Is rich a multiple meaning word that could mean different things at different times in different situations? It is to be supposed that life would have continued along its way for old Pat and young Tom had they not seen the announcement, "By order of the king, harping contest to choose the finest harpist in Ireland at the royal palace. All may enter." "To be known as the best harpist in Ireland would be an honor indeed," said old Pat. "Don't waste your time, old man," sneered Tom. "It's a young man like myself they'll be wanting." But Pat shook his head and gathered his few meager possessions for the journey. "Aha," thought young Tom, "if we travel together, he's sure to offer me a bite of his food. That would save me a penny or two." Is he planning to take advantage of old Pat's kindness? And so it was that on this night the two sat together by the fire of twigs. They were footsore and weary from walking the many miles toward the royal palace. As he listened to Pat practicing for the contest, a sudden thought flashed through young Tom's mind. "I could lose to this ridiculous old man." So, as old Pat turned his head for a second, the wicked boy quickly snapped a string on Pat's harp and pushed his own spare string deep inside his bag. "I'm sorry for your trouble," he said to old Pat, "but I have no string to lend you, for I might need it myself." Old Pat sighed. He had no money to buy a new string. The harping contest was as good as lost. Then, suddenly, through the darkness came a cry, "Help!" The two men shivered, for they knew tales of tricks played on poor travelers by villain leprechauns. "Surely 'tis the little people that's after us," whispered young Tom. But as the voices rose to a wail, old Pat's kindness of heart proved stronger than his fear of leprechaun tricks. "We must find out who's in trouble," he cried to Tom. "Not I," declared young Tom. "I'll have nothing to do with it. I'll not take the risk of missing the contest." He turned his back to the voice and covered his ears. On shaking legs, old Pat walked toward the sound of the voice. In a clearing, he saw a tiny man with his foot down a rabbit hole. "Help me, sir," cried the little man. "I took off my shoes to rest my feet, and a rabbit has taken hold of my big toe. Help me!" From deep in the burrow came the shrill laugh of the rabbit. "Let go, you rogue!" the little man yelled down the hole. "I'll have you for dinner, you pesky bag of flea-ridden fur." "I'll soon fix that scoundrel," thought old Pat. He bent down and barked piercingly as a fox might in the night. The rabbit let out a scream of fright, and out popped the little man's toe. "Thank you," cried the leprechaun, for a leprechaun he was. "Come," said Pat, trying not to laugh, for a funnier sight he thought never to see. "I've not much to offer, but what I have you're welcome to share." It's very nice to share. Old Pat led the leprechaun back to the fire. "I see your fellow traveler has up and gone," said the leprechaun. "A brave fellow indeed he proved to be, but I thank you kindly for your help. I'd like to repay you." "I'll be needing no payment," answered old Pat. He picked up his harp and began to play a soft tune to soothe the little man. Suddenly, old Pat's eyes... Sorry. "You play well," said the leprechaun, "but I'm thinking your harp is not in a good way." "I have a broken string," answered old Pat sadly. "I'm on my way to the harping contest at the royal palace, but I'll not win now. I have no money to buy a new string." "Ah," declared the leprechaun sharply, "so it's the gold you'll be wanting." "No, indeed," cried old Pat, mightily alarmed. He knew terrible things happened to those who searched for crocks of leprechaun gold. "Ah, but yes, I think it's so," answered the leprechaun firmly. Suddenly, old Pat's eyes would not stop from closing. With a sigh, he fell asleep. The leprechaun blew a silvery note on his whistle. Out of the forest came a band of little men, each carrying a bag. "He wants the gold," said the leprechaun, as he told the tale of old Pat. "You know what to do." The little men nodded solemnly as they clicked open their bags. What do you think they're going to do? He said he didn't want the gold. Can you make a prediction? Can you stop and think what they might be about to do with those bags? When old Pat awakened the next morning, he looked around in fright, but the leprechaun was gone. "It's a lucky escape I've had," cried old Pat, and he picked up his harp case and set off for the royal palace. They were gone, and he didn't see any gold. Wonder what they did. Off in the distance, what do you see? Probably the royal palace, right? As old Pat reached the courtyard, young Tom took the stage. Looking mighty pleased and confident, he began to play a sweet tune, but as if bewitched, the strings of his harp began to break. One by one, they twanged and twitched and twirled in the air until all lay dangling. Young Tom gazed at his harp in horror, but then he knew. "Leprechauns," he muttered as he hung his head and shuffled from the stage. Now it was old Pat's turn. With sadness in his heart, the old man reached for his harp. Then his eyes widened, for there, inside his bag, lay a glittering golden harp. "The leprechaun's gold," gasped old Pat. He lifted the golden harp and began to play. He played the merriest music ever heard, so wonderful that the wind itself stopped to listen. A wild tune it was, which filled the people's hearts with joy and their lips with laughter. Did the wind itself really stop to listen? They gave a person's trait, listening, to something that's not a person, the wind. Does anybody remember what that's called in figurative language? If so, maybe you can type that into comments. As the magic seized their feet, the people began to dance. Soon the courtyard was filled with dancing, singing, and a laughing crowd. The other harpists knew now that this was Pat's day and danced along with the people. Even young Tom, who had learned a hard lesson, found generosity growing in his heart. When the final note faded away, the king rose from his throne and beckoned to Pat. "Old man," said the king, "the prize is yours. Never have I heard such music. From now on, you will play always for me and my people. You are awarded the title Royal Harpist of Ireland." Where is Ireland on a map? What continent would you find Ireland? You can still, if you have access to a computer, you can still access your Google Classroom where you have the map, or maybe you can find another world map somewhere at home. Where is Ireland? From the nearby forest came the tinkling sound of a little leprechaun laughing. There are 16 four-leaf clovers in this book. Can you find them all? Oh my goodness, we'll have to do that in person sometime so that you can actually get close enough to the book to find all of the four-leaf clovers. What a fun thing to do with this book. All right, guys, we've talked a lot about these 3 books from Ireland about St. Patrick's Day. So tell me what you noticed that was the same in some of the books and what might have been different. And if you noticed anything about a folk tale in this story, how does that compare? What type of folk tale do you think it is? Why do you think it's that kind of folk tale? And where in the world is Ireland? All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope that you enjoyed your story times. And please remember to check back in Remind and on this page so that we can continue to communicate together. Bye, guys.